Hey guys, this is Nick from Acton Custom with my camera woman Bonnie, on duty of course. I've had a few requests on replacing the windshield glass in the Cobras, and I realized that I'd actually started replacing the windshield glass before I went, I better do a video on this since I've had requests for it. So this is an ERA windshield. The L brackets inside the frame on the bottom have been brazed into it or welded onto it. So the only thing holding this together is these two little, I think they're number 4 screws on each side of the L brackets. And I found that these nice little cheapy clamps you can get that work as a clamp and you reverse them and use them as a spreader bar. I laid these down inside the frame, held the jaws down nice and flush, and I used those in 3 places across the glass to work the bottom of the frame off. This has been together for quite a while, so the rubber's fairly well set. It's stuck to the glass, and it's actually outside the frame a little bit where it's swelled out of the frame. So having used the 3 clamps across here to spread it out, 3-4 clamps, something to spread the load out, we finish up with pushing this bottom bar off the windshield, and now you can see the angle brackets at the bottom that just take the 2 screws to hold it together. Okay? The windshield, you can see this glass has been broken, and this is why we've replaced it. You'll also see that I'm using the packaging that we get the glass in. There's a concave and a convex curve in the packaging, and this makes a really good workbench for doing this project on. It supports it nice and evenly, and at that point you've got pretty good access to it, and if you want to flip it over and use the other part of it, it's the reverse shape, if you're working on it the other way up. Now, because this has been in here for quite a while, what I did was I took my knife, I put it inside here, and I did a trim as far back in as I could on the rubber on the old seal that was all the way around the windshield. I've done that on both sides, and I've peeled out the strip from in there, and I've tried to reduce as much as I can the sticking and the surface area of the windshield gasket to the inside of the frame. At this point, we should be able to start encouraging the ends of the frame off here if we've released it enough. And you can see it starting to go here. I'm not going to break the windshield glass at this point, it's already broken. And
what is that you're using?
I'm just using a number 1 Phillips screwdriver.
Okay.
And sliding that up in the gap at the end. And you can see I'm starting to encourage the end of the frame off the glass. And you can actually see it starting to peel away as I'm getting the frame to come off the end of the glass here. And be careful, because if it releases suddenly, you'll finish up breaking, or I should say bending, your brass windshield frame to a different shape. So I'm trying to be controlled with my brute strength, getting the frame off the edges of the glass. And I think that's a good place to put the video on pause. Okay, so what we've done since we were last here, sprayed a little WD-40 along the bottom rubber of the glass and then run it back and forth. Got that in there to try and get it juiced up and try and get it loosened up. I pulled out a couple of my plastic pry bars, and you can see they get in there pretty good with some control. And I can work that frame off the edge of the glass with some pretty good control without doing too much more damage to the glass. So, having got this side pretty well loosened up, I'm now able to dig into the top of the glass in real good shape and work my way along the top of that. And so there's some useful tips and tricks. So we've patiently and carefully worked our way up this side, across the top. It's really still hanging on pretty good at that end, but you can see we've got the frame freed up pretty well with the plastic pry bars. And let's see if we can get it off the other end as well. All right, so here we go. We finally dissuaded it from hanging on to the old glass, and we've freed up our frame, which is now ready to clean up and get ready to reassemble with the new glass. So what I did was I found on the long strip, which Bonnie's just cleaned and prepped and taken the polystyrene chips off for us, I found the middle of it. I folded it over into a U shape. I found the middle of my windshield frame where the split header bows go, and I've started folding it up into the U shape and pushing it up into the frame. And I'm probably going to turn this upside down to let gravity help me out a little here and push this down into the frame instead, although it does seem to be holding pretty well. And you can see that the strip is wider than it needs to be, which gives you a little extra length sticking out, and we'll show you why that helps when we get to the point of reassembling it to the glass. So this is a fairly sharp corner on the frame here, and what I typically would do there is I would fold it up into my U shape. You can see it tries to bunch up and wrinkle up pretty good. I'm just going to snip a few wedges out of that. And that's going to make it a lot easier to get around the corner. I'm probably going halfway across that, and I probably didn't mention before either that this is after making sure that there's nothing left of the old windshield seal and rubber and everything inside the frame. So we've cleaned the frame, we've cleaned the new windshield gasket, and you can see that goes pretty nicely into the corner now, and I can carry on with my method of folding and stuffing the new seal into the frame. And if I started on center in the frame and started on center in the seal, I should hopefully have enough gasket to get to the bottom and have to snip a little bit of a corner to match the corner of the frame. And I'll do the same thing on the other side and show you where we finish up at.
Okay.
So what I'm doing here is I'm taking my little plastic pry bar and I'm just opening up the edges and getting it ready to accept the new glass into it, and just giving it the welcome hands. And that's why you can see we have a little extra on the width. I'll show you what to do with that on the end, but that certainly helps to open up the edge of the new gasket and to have it ready to encourage the glass into it. We'll do the same thing on the other end. It's a kind of the rubber is a very pliable, almost a tarry sort of a composition, and so it's quite soft, quite sticky, quite pliable, and where I've snipped it, it's stuck right to itself, which is, you can see there I'm taking the time and trouble to get this to come apart so that it doesn't bunch over to one side or the other of the new glass. And then having got it unstuck from itself and apart, you can see that it is kind of helpful in holding a position when you're spreading the seal out and getting it ready for the new glass. Right, so as you saw, Bonnie snuck up on me with the camera, and I put a little WD around the inside of the gasket. This is how the glass comes to you, with a little bit of packaging and a little bit of tape and some little shock absorbing pads on it, which I think I'm going to leave on for the time being. No, it's in the way of the tape over here. I believe I'm ready to attempt the glass installation down into the frame. You see the WD-40 looks like it's helped me pretty good. The curvature of the glass and the curvature of the windshield are a little bit mismatched, so you see I'm just going to line them up with each other and start that glass down into the frame. With a little assistance from gravity. I was just lifting the edge back out there where I'd lost that edge a little bit. Does it look like I've got it all there, Bonnie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can see that I can get that to sit in there.
It looks good. It went in easily.
At that point, we're about ready to use our shipping packaging workbench once again and set it back up on that and follow a similar procedure for getting the gasket into the bottom channel of the windshield frame.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done the same thing with the seal or the gasket for the windshield frame along the bottom of it here. We've tucked it into a U-shape, pushed it down into the frame. We're eyeballing the angle on the ends of the frame, snipping the end of the gasket, tucking it down in there, and now we've got the opening hands all ready for that part. We'll do the same thing with a little squirt of WD-40 on the camera woman and on the bottom seal, and then we're ready to put our corner brackets up inside the frame. And start working that into the bottom. I've got to open my gap up a little bit here between the seal and the frame so that I can fit the brackets up in there. So I just used a flat bladed screwdriver just to slide up in there and open up the gasket a little. And same thing, we want to make sure that it's meeting it all the way across as much as we can. Get that started in on the bottom of the glass. And you can see I've lost my gasket a little here. So I'm just going to encourage it open a little bit. And there she goes. Wants to go on all the way across. Almost all the way across. There we go. You see that just slid in place pretty nicely. At this point, I'm going to grab my 24-inch clamps. I don't like these ones, I like my other ones, but we can use those to just hold the windshield together while we carefully align the screw holes on the end, and we can eyeball in on those and we can get those screws back started again. Make sure they're very straight. Be careful with those because there's not much thread on them. It's very easy to get them cross-threaded on a fine thread short screw. Okay, what we did was very carefully put the screws, lined up the screw holes, got the screws back into the frame. You've got to make sure you use the correct length and the screws you pulled out. If you use a screw in there that's too long, it's going to touch the glass and you're going to be right back to square one with a broken glass. I wanted to show you this part, me having a razor blade in my mouth like one of my heroes, Joe Martin, but I'm going to defer to a knife with a safe handle on it and difference of productivity and efficiency. And you see what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a cut using the frame as the edge and trimming around the new gasket, just touching the glass as I do so. I'm going to do that on both sides. The windshield glass replacement is pretty much complete at that point. Bonnie was pointing out that we do have to, as best we can, peel the sticker off the original glass, the inspection sticker, try and transfer that to that. The other thing you can do with something like that is you can take it off as best you can, bring your paperwork into your inspection station, explain to them that you've done a glass replacement and they'll give you a new sticker. Thanks for watching our video. This is, pretty much everything there is to replacing the glass on your Cobra windshield. And you can get, of course, replacement glass or complete windshield assemblies from us here at Acton Custom. And Bonnie would love to take your phone calls. Thanks for watching.